I'm Michael Sazin, the Parrot Wizard, and today I will be answering your harness questions. But before I get to that, let me show you how Rachel puts on her harness. Hey Rachel, you want to come put on your harness? Good job. As you see, Rachel walks over and puts the harness on herself. She demonstrates her interest and willingness to wear the harness right now. She has been trained to do this, and the harness training is a crucial step in teaching the parrot to willingly participate in putting on the harness. So all I got to do now is tighten this up. Good job, Rachel. Very good. So now Rachel's all harnessed up and ready to go. Unfortunately, it's a cold, rainy day outside today, so we'll be answering your harness training questions from indoors. Alright, so now I've got my helpers here, Kili, Truman, and Rachel, and let's get to the harness training questions. But one more thing before I can get to that, I want to answer the most typical question is, how do I get my parrot to wear a harness? How do I teach my parrot to wear an aviator harness? And this is a complicated question. This is not something I can get to in the span of a Q&A session like this. That's why I created my harness training DVD. It's almost an hour long to show you the full process of teaching a parrot that doesn't know how to wear a harness yet, and develop the training required so that that parrot can learn to wear the aviator harness. Now, in order to be able to begin the aviator harness training, the parrot needs to already be familiar with things like, come here, Kili, step up. Bird needs to be able to step up, allow you to touch it on the body, and allow you to open its wings. If your bird doesn't let you do those things, it's not going to be possible to do the aviator harness training because you got to do those things in the process. So for that reason, I would recommend that you read my book, The Parrot Wizard's Guide to Well-Behaved Parrots. It teaches you all of the required prerequisites that your parrot must know and how to train your parrot so that you can apply the training in the harness training DVD successfully. You can purchase the DVD, my book, and an aviator harness on my website, parrotwizard.com. If you get a harness and a book, you will get my DVD for free, so check out that bundle deal. It's the best way to go. Now let's just dive right into the questions. Okay, so Yoshiko Yujin asks, thanks, is it possible to buy the harness without having to get the CD with it? The harness packages come with the basic DVD, the basic instruction DVD always included. So that's just the way it comes, but there's no price difference whether it comes with it or not. My DVD is a separate purchase that I sell exclusively. He also asked, is the aviator harness chew-proof? Some birds have amazing beaks and tend to use it a lot. Yeah, they sure do, and that's a subjective question. The aviator harness is chew-proof for a parrot that just nibbles on it here and there. So my birds are properly trained and they're used to wearing their aviator harnesses. They have no problem wearing the aviator harness. So if they give it a nibble once in 10 minutes just to mess around with it or move it around their body, it does no harm. I use the same harnesses for years and years with my birds before they are too worn for use. Now, if you have a bird that's not trained and scared of the harness and just trying to rip it off, or a bird that's really bored and incessantly trying to chew it up as a toy, then you're going to have a problem. So it's something in between. They're chew-proof in the short term, and they're chew-proof from a trained parrot that knows how to wear it, but it's really important that your parrot is comfortable with it and not trying to rip it off intentionally. Cry Wit says, how do you prevent them from going to the bathroom on you? That's a good question. Well, I tend to walk with my birds on my hands instead of on my shoulder. Then if they poop, it just flies right onto the ground and misses me. Or when I do put them on my shoulders, that's usually right. And when I do put the birds on my shoulders, it's right after they've taken a poop, so I know they're not going to go for a while. I'll let them stay on my shoulder for a reasonable amount of time, and then when I think it's time for them to go again, I'll either put them down or put them back on my hand. David Deloro asks, do you think it is safe to walk a parrot that's afraid of new stuff? Will it hurt itself even with harness? No, I don't think that's safe. If a parrot is terrified of everything, it's just going to have a panic attack outside. It can get hurt, and if nothing else, it's just not going to enjoy it. It's really important to use some basic training to teach the parrot to accept new objects, new people, some basic things, and of course not be scared of the harness. And then with that in mind, it'll learn to be less fearful of things as you walk around more outside. Hyacinth Macaw says, how does the aviator harness work? Does it block the wings from expanding or something else? Basically, the aviator harness wraps around the bird's neck with the collar, and then it wraps around each wing. And because it wraps around behind the wings, it doesn't stop the wings from flapping or the head from moving around. So the birds have normal, free range of motion. They can fly in it and do all the normal things, but while still being tethered down so that they can't fly away if they get spooked. Minty says, my parrot who had clipped wings flew away one day. We were so lucky to get her back on that cold night. Please use a harness on a travel cage. Please use a harness or a travel cage when outside with your birds. That's a really good point. You know, these things happen to people, even with clipped parrots. So whether your parrot is clipped or flighted, it's really the best idea to use a cage or an aviator harness when your parrot is outside with you. Carla S. Says, I'd really like to go outside with my budgie without cage, but I don't know if the harness for parrots that small is safe. Could he slip out of it? I think that the aviator harness is too large to keep a budgie in. I think it could slip out, so I wouldn't recommend taking a budgie out in any form except in a cage. White's Watering asks, are you planning to teach Rachel to free fly? Yes, I am planning to teach Rachel to free fly, but only within my enclosed yard. So I want her flying in a gym or out in my enclosed yard where it's safe, but out in the free open, only with an aviator harness because I don't want to have a situation with a lost parrot again. AJTV says, hi Parrot Wizard, my parrot recently flew away. We have him back now, luckily, but I was thinking of getting him a harness. Do you think it would be too risky? I think it would be too risky not to get a harness if you're going to take him outside. He's already flown away, so the only safe way to take him outside would be to use an aviator harness so that couldn't happen. Fonsteam39 says, would you say there is a minimum size the bird should be or not? Would a Quaker parrot be able to make use of one? So first of all, a Quaker parrot is about the same size as Senegal, so totally no problem. The excess size aviator harness fits the birds of that size just fine. What is the minimum size of an aviator? Might be the other part of the question. And I would say a green cheek conure or a cockatiel, totally fine. They wear the petite size, quite reasonable use of the aviator for those birds. When you start getting smaller in the dimension of lovebirds or English budgies, there's a mini size. That's really pushing it. I think if your bird is really okay with it and it fits just right on that bird, it's still okay. Once you get to the regular size budgies, parrotlets, just the teeny tiniest birds, the harness is just too big and too difficult to put on them. And I would say it's too risky because they could slip out of it. Johnny Gatineau says, how tight should you make the harness? Well, the answer is just tight enough. It shouldn't restrict the bird's breathing. They should be able to move their belly in and out freely. But on the other hand, it needs to be as tight as possible so that the bird can't slip out of it. So it's about to the tightness where you could slip one finger under the harness between the bird's body and the harness. That's about a reasonable tightness. It looks like this. Laura Young says, more parrot videos, hooray. My question is, if my 14-year-old African red-bellied parrot is phobic of dogs, what's the best protocol to deal with this so he doesn't bolt if an unleashed dog comes running toward us? Thanks. Well, Laura, it's really up to you to protect your parrot when you're outside using a harness. Our goal is to teach the parrot not to be phobic and fearful of things, and then to protect them from those things ourselves. So if I'm walking outside with my birds and there's a dog coming at me that seems to want to sniff at or get at my birds, I'll have them on my hand and I'll hold them up high so that the dog can't come near them, or I might walk away or cross the street or just avoid the situation in the first place to protect my birds. Hannah Goodwin asks, have you tried any other harnesses? How do they compare, and what made you choose Aviator as the superior? I haven't tried other harnesses, and largely because there aren't that many other kinds available. There were a few other types like flight suit or feather tether, but they are more restrictive or have buckles. So what I really like about the Aviator is it's all one piece and just slips around the bird. It's the first one I've tried and it worked very, very well for my birds. The training methodology that I use for the Aviator is also very effective. So I find that this is the best harness because the birds can fly in it, it's easy to put on and off, it's reasonable to train the bird to wear it, so I don't really see any purpose of trying any other. Sophia asks, now Aviator has many sizes for lovebirds and other smallest parrots. It's more difficult to teach smaller birds to accept the harness because they're small bodies and harness takes 80% of it. Do you have some tips how to make it more comfortable? Unfortunately, I don't. As you said, the harness is basically the same size and it's just smaller and tighter for smaller birds, but the strap material is the same on the Mini as it is on the XS. So it's just going to be really hard to make it effective for the smallest birds because of the thickness of the material. So for the smallest birds, I'd really recommend just taking them outside in a cage. It'll keep them safe and be easier to move them around that way. But if you are going to use the Aviator, make sure you train them to be accepting of it, and hopefully their time in it will be more productive and less fearful if they know how to wear it properly. Alex H42 asks, question, is it safe for budgie to have a harness on even if they are fragile? In my personal opinion, I think the harness is too big for budgies, and I'd recommend taking them out in a travel cage. The good news is that budgies are so small that it's very easy to have a large cage for them that they can fly around in. Even getting a large flight cage, you could make an aviary outside for your budgies to fly around in for pretty inexpensive compared to the larger birds. So I feel that the Aviator harness is very useful for large parrots, especially for people who don't have the space or can't afford an aviary. So they really benefit from being able to take their parrot out in the open with the Aviator. But for owners of the smallest birds, you have better opportunities for building a cage or an aviary that can give those birds room to fly outside. So you have that advantage on the other hand. Hennis asks, my cockatiel always chews on the harness when it's on him, and by always, I really mean it. How do I stop that? Well, unfortunately, you can't stop a bird from chewing the harness if it's really scared of the harness. So it's really important to teach the parrot to be comfortable wearing the Aviator, and the way to teach it to be comfortable wearing the Aviator is by doing the Aviator harness training. If you follow the training methods that I teach, your parrot will learn to wear it and want to wear it, and if that's the case, the bird chose to put it on in the first place, then it shouldn't really feel any reason to want to rip it off. Runnin' Wild Ruby asks, I have a question. A lady told me that harnesses will make a bird mean. Is that true? No, absolutely not. The harness doesn't make a bird mean. It's people that make the bird mean. If people go and try to shove a harness on a bird without any training and just put it on the bird's going to be terrified, both of the harness and of the person that did it to the bird. So the key to making a bird cool with the Aviator harness is to teach them to wear it properly. If the bird wants to wear it, it has no reason to be mean or upset over it. That's why you got to follow the harness training methods that I outline in the book and DVD. The official Cassie writes, my conure is 5 months old and fully flighted. He's super social and loves to fly back and forth between my family members. How would I teach him that he shouldn't fly while wearing a harness? That's a great question. Of course, when the bird is wearing the harness and you're walking outside, it's not the time to be flying. And you said he likes to fly around between people, so how do you get around that? I would say it's really important to make sure that the bird is grab trained, where you can grab and hold the bird. Then when you walk outside, the bird will be wearing the Aviator harness. Be able to cup your hand around the bird or grab and hold them for a bit at a time, and basically keep them from having anywhere to go or be able to fly away. So by keeping the bird in your hands and kind of close, they'll learn that when you're outside wearing the Aviator, don't fly, don't go anywhere. On the flip side, do flight training outside with the Aviator intentionally. The way that I would take Kili and Truman out to the park to fly in their harnesses. They know that when I call their name, then it's time to fly over, and that's when it's okay to fly. And at the same time, when I cup you with my hands or hang on to you, then don't fly. And over time, they learn the difference, and that keeps them from having any issues. Except if they get spooked and fly off, then that's the only time that the harness is really there to protect you. Otherwise, by having your hands on the bird, you'll be able to keep them close by and not choosing to fly off in the first place. Francis Regenes asks, a parrot trainer told me that eclectus parrots should always have their wings clipped because they'll surely fly away otherwise. She advised against flight training. We're thinking about getting an eclectus, but feel that every bird should be able to fly. What's your opinion on this? Would it be okay with the use of an aviator harness? I think that any trainer that knows what they're doing wouldn't have to clip the bird's wings in order to get them to be cooperative, so I don't agree with that. All of my parrots are able to fly, and they all are cooperative, and they all can wear the aviator harness. So if you follow the methods that I teach for training flighted parrots, it doesn't matter if you get an eclectus, a budgie, or a macaw, they can all be trained the same way and taught to enjoy staying on you and wear an aviator harness. Giles Green asks, how long does it take to get your bird to get used to having a harness on? Because my conure will not wear hers. Well, it really depends. If you're just trying to stick the harness on the bird and expect them to get used to wearing it, more cases than not, that's just not going to work. Just because it's on them, they're not going to get used to it. They're always going to try to rip it off. They're not going to have any inclination to want to wear it. On the other hand, if you follow the harness training methods that I teach, you could teach the bird to wear the aviator in 1 week to a month, and the bird will progressively learn to wear it in stages and choose and want to wear it. Scout asks, I have a question. How do you stop the parrot nibbling, chewing on the harness once it's on? Like I said earlier, if the parrot is terrified of the harness and really trying to rip it off, nothing you can do in that moment is going to make it stop. Then it's really a matter of training the bird, teaching it to want to wear it. On the other hand, if the bird is properly trained and everything's okay and it's not scared of the harness and just nibbling a little bit, sometimes you can just try to distract it with toys and things to do. But keep in mind that's not going to be a substitute for a bird that's terrified of the harness. Dragon of Destiny asks, does it matter what color the aviator harness is? Yes, of course it matters. It depends what color you like. They come in 7 different colors and you're free to choose which one you like. Now when it comes to the parrot, I think that if you use the proper training method, they really couldn't care what the color is and they can learn to be okay with any color. But on the other hand, some people have parrots that are afraid of certain colors, and without training, they might have more trouble with a certain color than others. But in either case, training the bird to be comfortable with the aviator regardless of the color is really the best way. I tend to prefer either a color that really stands out on the parrot, like putting a red harness on a blue and gold macaw, or getting a harness that blends in, so a green parrot on Kili and Truman, or like I said, the contrasting color, maybe Truman's pink harness. So I don't like a color that's something in between that doesn't stand out but doesn't really show off either, so, or that is doesn't blend in and doesn't stand out. So I like either something that stands out or blends in. Valerie in the Sky asks, aren't you scared they will bite at your face? My boyfriend has 2 macaws. One of them looks like yours. And I'm scared of this happening to me, so I do not hold them. Well, that's a good point. Parrot could bite your face, and it could be very dangerous. So I don't recommend that you put parrots near your face until you are truly comfortable with them. And you will know when you're at that point because of your long-term history with them. But these guys are extensively trained and used to being with me, and I'm used to being with them, so I trust them on my shoulder because of the history we have together. Jake Ryan says, it is so difficult to train a smaller bird to wear one. The head noose is just so tight and close-fitting compared to the bigger sizes. I'm having a lot of trouble getting my sun conure to willingly put her head through the loop part. I have no trouble handling her wings, but man, that head loop. How the heck did you get Kili to relax and stay still enough to put it on her? Isn't she about the same size as the sun using XS? Yes, Kili's about the same size, and I don't have too much trouble putting it on her, but it really all comes down to training. If the parrot doesn't want to wear the harness and is trying to wiggle out and run away from you and get away and avoid it, it's really hard, maybe impossible to put the aviator on. If the parrot is cooperative and wishes to have it put on, that's a whole other story. And the whole point of making them want to put it on and move their body to assist you to put it on, like I showed you earlier where Rachel comes over and puts it on herself. If you teach the bird to want to wear it like that, then you won't have any trouble. Bethany Lanigan asks, what are the chances I'll ever be able to get my 10-year-old set in his ways, fearful African gray, used to a harness? Is it ever too late? Well, it's never too late. You can always use the training methods and make the accomplishments and make it work. I've demonstrated this on Santina, who was 15 years old at the time, to wear an aviator harness. It's possible to teach any parrot to wear the aviator harness. The main difference between an older parrot that's set in their ways and maybe more fearful and difficult, is just the amount of effort that it's going to take to accomplish the end result. If you're willing to put in the time, patience, and use the right methodology and work really hard at it, and realize it's going to take a long time, it's totally doable. Milton Manikeeper asked, what do you do if they take a dump while they are on your shoulders? Well, if they already did, it's too late. Just wipe it off, and next time try to take them off your shoulders before you expect them to do it. Emil says, hello, both of my cockatiels love to go outside in their porch cage to get some sun and listen to the wild birds. However, there's a healthy population of red-tailed hawks in my area. Should I be concerned about this when taking my birds outside on harnesses? Yes, you definitely should. You got to be careful. I would avoid flying them on a harness because that would attract hawks. But I think if you keep them on your body, or even better yet, on your hands, and keep them very close to you and you move around, hawks don't attack at people. And if you keep those birds out of sight and close to your body, I don't think they should be trying to attack the birds either. Emil continued saying, I tried my best not to violate his space because I know he gets very uncomfortable. Is harness training still a possibility for him? He does step up and cuddle, and will cuddle with my face, but just not like hands particularly near his head. Well, until that problem is solved, there's no way you're going to be able to put on the aviator harness, because inevitably you have to put your hands near the bird for parts of the aviator harness that they can't put on themselves and you have to put on for them. So it's really important to do some basic training and taming to teach the bird to be comfortable with your hands in their vicinity, touching, grabbing, holding them, and then follow the procedures for teaching the aviator harness next. People, you got to realize that if you have a bird that's not really comfortable with hands and really good with hands on their body and wings and head, the aviator requires you to do all of that and the aviator on top of that. You've got to solve the taming issues before you can approach the aviator issue specifically. I Love Cavaliers says, I have heard that the smallest one is still too big for a parrotlet. Is there one you could show one on? I want to get one for my parrotlet and both my conures. First of all, your conures will definitely be all right. Petite size for a green cheek or extra small for sun conure sized conures. But when it comes to the parrotlet, even the mini size I think will be too big. The bird's going to be drowning in material, kind of like a child trying to put on adult clothes. So I would encourage you to get an aviator for the conures, but use a cage when you take the parrotlet outside. Xalos Fowlan asks, with a cockatiel specifically, how long can they be outside for before they get tired or restless? Well, let's not even talk about cockatiels specifically, but any parrot, they will get tired and restless pretty quickly if they don't have experience going outside. So in the beginning, you got to keep your sessions short and brief and just get them used to being outside and being in an aviator. And as the birds get more and more used to being outside for longer periods of time, then they can go out for longer. It's just all about building up stamina, trust, and comfort. And cockatiels will be the same way, so I don't think there's any limit. For a cockatiel that's used to going out like this, they can be able to go out all day long. For a cockatiel that's not accustomed yet, shorter sessions will be better. Why do you want to knock Truman off his perch so much? It's his perch. You could stay with me. Do you think can you here and you'll stay? You stay. Alright, Kili really wants to sit on the perch with Truman. She kept pushing him off before, but hoping that if I let her stay and Truman's just gonna huddle off to the side, she'll let him have the little corner, itty bitty corner of the perch for himself. Gonna keep my eye on you. Billy Bobbington says, if a bigger parrot like Rachel were to get spooked while wearing a harness and really try to fly away and pulled on the harness with all her strength, one, would the harness hold up well in the situation and not give? And two, is there a chance any harm could come to the bird as a result? It's a really good question, and in truth, it doesn't even matter. Alright, she didn't kick him off, but Truman got a little uncomfortable, so you come stay with me for a while, Truman. It doesn't even matter if the bird is sized like Rachel or a smaller bird. The harnesses are proportionate in size relative to the bird, so the strength is also scaled. And there was one situation, there's a video on my YouTube channel of a parrot, a Blue and Gold Macaw, in fact, that flew away and ripped the harness leash right out of the connection, and the bird ended up flying away from the owner. And that was a case of damage. It was not a case where the harness itself was defective or not strong enough. It was a case where the bird was chewing on the harness all day long and the owner wasn't paying attention. And when it flew away, it pulled just hard enough to break what was left of it and get away. So it is very important to make sure that the harness is in good condition and isn't damaged. But the strength of the harness itself, when it's new or even used but not thoroughly destroyed, it is sufficient. And the second part of the question, and is there any chance any harm could come to the bird as a result? Not really. In most cases, the bungee, the elastic bungee portion of the cord will slow down the bird, and they will get dragged down and they will just gradually flap and land on the ground. In the best case scenario, the bird will learn and be accustomed to turning around and flying back to you. That's what happens when Kili flies off. She hits the end of the leash, she just boomerangs around 180 degrees, comes back and lands on my shoulder. And in other cases, the birds keep flapping and trying to fly away, and I start reeling them in on the harness while they're flying and kind of pulling them back toward me until I can get my arm back under them and catch them. So most cases you can catch the bird. Worst case scenario, they end up landing on the ground in front of you. But what it won't do is it will not cause harm or damage to their body by having the harness pressed against them, because the bungee cord on the harness cushions the flying away and hitting the end part. Stephanie Cardova asks, I just ordered the harness and it should come on Monday, and I want to know how to put it on my ringneck parrot. He is 2 years old and doesn't get outside much, but would like that to change. Wait, so now I have to buy the DVD. Well, the harness comes with the DVD, but it's just a very basic instruction of how to put it on. It doesn't necessarily teach you the training methods required to teach the parrot to volunteer and participate in volunteering to wear the Aviator harness. So if you want to learn how to teach the parrot to be very comfortable and want to wear the Aviator, I would recommend that you read my book and check out my DVD. Joey Man says, I have a parrot, Jardine's parrot, who likes being outside and flying. He loves being outside and doesn't mind having a harness on, but thinks it's scary to put it on, especially over the head. What can I do to make him realize that it is not scary or dangerous, since he loves being outside and isn't allowed to go outside without the harness? Well, it's a good point that just because he's scared of the harness isn't a reason to let him outside without one. But on the other hand, if he's scared of putting it on, how's he going to enjoy it? So this is actually very much what the harness training that I teach is all about. It's all about teaching the bird to be comfortable with the process of putting it on and off. In most cases, the birds are just really terrified of having it put on them, having it going over their head, the whole process of putting it on. So making sure that the bird is really comfortable with hands, not afraid of hands, comfortable with your hands on or near them, opening and closing their wings, that's half the battle. And then the other half is really just teaching them to partake in putting the Aviator on so they think it's their own idea. And one more question from Joey Man. Have you noticed the birds having preference in harness colors? Not really. I think they're cool with wearing any of them. They tend to be better at wearing the... cutie. They tend to be better at wearing the harness colors that they were taught in, but it doesn't matter particularly. I have a video of Truman sampling all 7 colors of the Aviator harness, and he takes it on, and he puts on and off each size back to back, no problem. I'd say that the color that blends with the bird tends to work a little bit better. So green for the green birds, red for a red macaw, and things like that. It blends in with their body a little more, and I think they're a little bit less concerned about something different being on them. But other than that, it doesn't particularly matter. So that's it for the questions I had time to get to today. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my Parrot Wizard YouTube channel. Check back on Tuesdays and Thursdays for video updates. Check out the Train Parrot blog for lots of free trick training articles. And you can buy all of my harness supplies at parrotwizard.com.